Hello everybody, my name is Archer Sigur from TheSocialStudier. Today we're going to be doing a special interview with Athens Mayoral candidate Tim Denson. Would you like to introduce yourself for people that may not know you?
Yeah, I'm Tim Denson, run for Mayor of Athens, Clark County, currently on the school board for District 5 for Clark County, former county commissioner and community organizer. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk with you. Yeah.
So first question I have for you, what would be like your top priority if you were mayor, and how would you address it?
Definitely. So my biggest, it's kind of a bit of a broad one, is just really to make Athens more affordable. Athens was a place that for a long time was very affordable for people, that it lured a lot of artists and creative types, people who could explore starting new restaurants, businesses like that. But in the last few years, like a lot of the country, it's gotten a lot more expensive to live here, and pay and wages has not kept up with that. So really it's to make Athens more affordable, and some of the specific ways for that is to make housing more affordable. Housing costs have really ballooned over the last few years for renters and also for homeowners. So I want to bring down those costs by using a number of tools, including our inclusionary housing policies and our affordable housing fund that we have here in Athens now. And I also want to make childcare more affordable for families, because for a lot of families, that is the second largest expense. It was for my family when my daughter was younger. And so I want to do that by actually putting a regulation fee on businesses that sell vapes, which like a lot of other counties have, and then using those funds and those regulation fees to go into a childcare subsidy account that we can help lower those costs. And then I also want to maintain our zero fare public transit system that makes affordable transportation option for a lot of our most low income individuals who need to get around town. I proudly campaigned on that for many years and got that done as a county commissioner. And I want to make that permanent for the county moving forward if I become mayor.
Amazing. So you've emphasized in many speeches like building more housing to solve the homelessness crisis, but I've seen a lot of people, like especially on the right, argue that building more housing doesn't necessarily equal less homelessness, because they've said that it could just incentivize just more middle class people to move in. So are you going to opt for like a gradual inclusion by building homeless shelters?
Yeah, I mean, so we need to hit it on multiple levels. Definitely a big part of things is we just need to build more housing. That comes down to the supply and demand, and that has been the biggest factor that's made housing costs increase here in Athens, but also across the entire country and honestly the world, is that we have less housing being built, but we have actually an increased number of people who need housing here in Athens. And so it's becoming more and more competitive, which is driving housing costs up. So the way I've been talking about is, yes, we need to build more housing. We need to make a larger percentage of the housing we build affordable. And then, when it comes specifically for homelessness and getting those folks housed, we need more shelter beds. Right now, Athens only has 2 shelters, Bigger Vision and the Salvation Army. The only one of those that's an emergency shelter is Bigger Vision. And so they have somewhere, it changes at different times, but around 40 beds. We have a lot more people facing homelessness than that. So we need to have more shelter capacity. So I am advocating that we will build either another shelter or be able to work with Bigger Vision or Salvation Army to expand their shelter capacity. But we also need that next step up, which I think it kind of gets to what you're talking about, like having these like steps. And so we kind of had that with the first step encampment, which I think was a somewhat sloppy, but somewhat also effective way of getting that next level up. I would really like to look into us having a development working with partners to have kind of a tiny home village that we could have for folks that can move up into that, start to get stabilized, start to get some of their life together, start to get some of the support services, getting support for maybe if they have addiction issues or mental health issues or physical health issues, that kind of thing. Because that way, that can be a really nice way to stabilize folks who are homeless and then move them up to the next level, which I would hope would be actual permanent supportive housing, where they would have their own housing unit and a case manager that would help them with wraparound services that they need.
Great. Now, moving on to like street safety.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of like dangerous jaywalking personally.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Sure.
Do you have any plans to improve like that?
Definitely. I think a lot of it needs to come down to, for us having safe crosswalks, and especially having ones that have the alert beacons, where somebody can push the button, it flashes, and everybody can know to stop to cross there. It's been successful on Prince Avenue, and of course we have them closer to school districts and schools that we have around. So that is something I think we definitely need to expand. There's actually a project on the other part of Prince Avenue further down to actually put in place a few crosswalks, because we've had a lot of jaywalking and people crossing there too. So that's something I think we need to make a lot more common. It's been happening over the last few years, but it needs to expand. One of the biggest challenges is, as you guess, it's just kind of expensive, right? It's expensive to do the road studies, to get it set up right and get it put in the right place. The beacon systems themselves cost, tens of thousands of dollars. So it definitely requires some funding. And so what I'm proposing is a new policy that I'm calling inclusionary parking. And the way this policy works is, right now we have parking minimums here in Athens, Clarke County. So if a developer wants to come in and build a commercial development or even a mixed residential development, they have a required number of spots based on a bunch of regulations that they have to build, even if the developer does not believe that they need to because of the kind of businesses or purpose of their building or where it's located. They have a set minimum they have to build. And so this is why we end up, a lot of times, you drive around and you see empty parking lots all over the place, that are just have way more spaces than they need. And so what I'm proposing is creating an inclusionary parking program that will be developers can opt into. And so what this will do is that, say they need to have 100 spots is the required number of spots that our planning department says they have to have parking spots. But the developer thinks they only need 60. So this would give them an option. Instead of building those 40 that they don't think they need, they could instead take the funding half the funding which costs to build those 40 and put it into an inclusionary multimodal fund that we could then use to build out crosswalks, sidewalks, bike lanes, and also help fund our bus and transit system. Because what the developer is saying is, we believe that the other people who are going to be coming to our business or this place that we were building are going to get here other ways, either by walking or biking or taking the bus or carpooling, whatever it is. And so instead of funding unused parking spaces, they would fund those other multimodal ways of getting there instead. So it's a win for the developer, a win for the community because we get all those extra supports. And it's also like a win for the environment, because then you end up having less stormwater issues. You end up having less heat pollution happening from like having those big asphalt places that kind of creates a lot of heat and temperatures during the summer. So it's just a big win-win-win, and I think it'd be a program that would be really good for here. And I don't think it's one that's been done anywhere else in Georgia or the Southeast.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So what are some flaws that you've noticed in previous administrations that you'd work to correct?
That's a good question. One of the biggest ones I think is just kind of the way that the mayor and commission operates. I was on the commission for 4 years, and we got a lot of great stuff done. I think we were a very productive commission at that time, and I'm really proud of a lot of things that we did. But something that definitely noticed was happening then and before, and it's definitely happening now even more so, is just kind of the way that the commissioners act and treat staff sometimes, and also act during the meetings in a kind of unprofessional way with a lack of decorum that I think our community expects better and deserves better. So one of the things I want to do is to really kind of have very set expectations for the mayor and commission during our formal meetings of the way that we're going to address each other, because we already have this to a degree. We're supposed to operate by Robert's Rules of Order, and we have a list of other things that we're supposed to do. Like commissioners aren't supposed to be referring to each other by names or calling each other out or calling each other names or denigrating staff. These things aren't supposed to be happening, but they do. And so I really want to set the expectation that these things, if I'm mayor, are not going to be accepted. We're going to put a stop to them right away so that doesn't become a bit of a norm like we've seen now. Because some things that we've had is that it really hurts staff's just well-being and their morale. And we've even seen some, I know for a fact, we've actually lost some county employees because of the way that they were treated by commissioners and felt, like disrespected. And they, a lot of times they can go to Atlanta or Charlotte or somewhere like that and get paid a lot more for the work they do. But people want to work here in Athens because they love this community. And if they're dedicating their lives to servicing this community, doing this work, we need to make sure that we are dealing with them with respect. And so that's something, the expectation I want to put right out there first and foremost before we start.
So you said that like people in there are getting have had negative experiences working with the commissioner.
Yeah.
Does anything with that have to do with discrimination based on their sexual orientation, race?
I've never seen. There has been. I have seen some stuff when it comes to sexual orientation and gender. There was some of that. There has been some of that. We had a commissioner and some staff members, who go by, they them pronouns and presented as queer, and definitely commissioners that it seemed very much to me intentionally would misgender them and such. So I definitely saw that at times, and and a lot of the times it wasn't even necessarily in that realm as much as they just didn't trust or didn't believe folks, and so they would really treat them poorly. And a lot of times this was because commissioners hadn't actually read the things that they were supposed to read, and they weren't informed. And if they had been, maybe they would have reacted to those things differently. But so it's for a number of reasons. Yeah.
Also touching on discrimination, I've heard you say that you want to address past harm faced by the Black community,
definitely,
specifically, and other minorities.
Yeah.
Could you give specific examples on how you do that?
Definitely. So one of the big ones, and this goes back to housing, is a lot of housing and zoning, going back to history of it. A lot of that was racially motivated going back. Redlining and these things were zoned in ways to make sure that people of color weren't living in quote unquote white neighborhoods and such. And that obviously impacted Athens at times, and we can look at Town as being this really bold example of how that happens sometimes. But we've seen it in other places that still we have the remnants of. So say the East Athens neighborhood, the Hancock corridor. These are areas that have very similar build outs as predominantly white single family neighborhoods that are zoned single family in those white neighborhoods. But a lot of East Athens and also Hancock was zoned mixed residential, so allowing a whole number of other uses to be able to happen there and making it much more inviting to student populations to be able to build student housing in those areas, or even have fraternities and stuff pop up there, things that couldn't happen in a single family neighborhood. And I believe that was racially done, and we still have a lot of the remnants of that in our zoning maps now. So one of the things I would like to do is when we're going through zoning, a lot of East Athens and Hancock honestly should be, if we're going to have single family zoning, should be zoned single family. And I think in a place, especially like East Athens, that's seen a lot of encroachment from development specifically for student housing because it's just cheap to build over there compared to the rest of the county. I think that we might need to be looking at creating some new zoning districts in that area that could kind of give some protections to them that would help at least slow the development of student housing and what used to be a lot of single family homes that are now we're seeing displacement of a lot of the historic Black community that's there. So that is one thing when it comes specifically to the housing that I would like us to be working on addressing. Another big one that there has been a history of has been when it comes to contracts that the local government, and this includes also the school district that I'm on now, contracting that they have done. Both entities had a disparity study done a few years ago, which is a required step for a government to be able to take any kind of racially motivated steps to kind of try to heal historic disparities and discrimination. you have to be able to prove it through this thing they call a disparity study. So both the school district and the county government hired one of these companies on to do a disparity study to see if there has been an actual historic discrimination done when it comes to our government contracts and government spending. Both of those studies came back and showed, yes, there has been historic discrimination when it comes to government contracts being delved out and our spending. So we've gotten a list of recommendations, both entities have, but it's been very slow going actually enacting those recommendations. So one of the things I've been pushing for this on the school board, along with a number of other school board officials, of getting those recommendations fastly put in place. We've got a few of them put in place, but on the county commission, I want to do the same thing and take those recommendations, put them in place so that we're making it easier for smaller businesses that might be black owned or minority owned or woman owned to be able to be competitive for those government contracts, and so that we stop giving just the vast majority of them to these extremely large corporations oftentimes that are normally white owned, and honestly a lot of times are actually outside of Athens, not even local too.
Amazing. What are your thoughts on the other candidates running for mayor?
Sure. I actually, for the most part, I know all of them, and some of them I've known for quite some time. The only one I really don't know is Pastor Miller, who's the most recent. I don't really know her very well. But Commissioner Dexter Fisher, I knew a bit before he came out of the commission, but of course he's on the commission now in his first term. I respect him. I respect all these folks who are running. My concerns there is that some of his policies putting out, especially when it comes to housing, some of his past votes, like voting against the community garden over in East Athens. Some of these things I think are very much concerning and not in the best for the community. And so that's some of my concerns there. But I definitely appreciate his years of work and support here in Athens. Dr. Lakeisha Gant, who I'm on the school board with, I definitely have a lot of respect for and consider her a friend. And was just at the school meeting on Thursday. So with her, it's just like I feel like we do need to have somebody who has experience working in our local government to be able to really understand the powers of the mayor's office, the different levers that we can pull, and the different policies that we need to enact. I hope in the future, she does run for something and get on something there. And then Mara Zuniga, I definitely know just from the campaign trail when she has run in the past. I think we have a lot of differing ideas when it comes to policy. But I respect her for throwing her hat in the ring and running.
So, in a speech, you said that you want to make worker unions more accessible. How do you intend to directly pressure companies to accomplish that?
So, a couple of ways, and some of this is actually not even for companies, but when it comes to government workers, I was one of the early supporters for letting our fire department here in Athens-Clarke County unionize and becoming only the second fire department in the state of Georgia to be unionized. I have a lot of experience with this. I was actually a labor organizer and union organizer for years for United Campus Workers of Georgia. And so I worked to get university workers organized and signed up for the union and help them when they had complaints or issues. I helped advocate for them and be a liaison for them. I helped do lobbying and stuff on the state level. So that's something that I would definitely continue doing, is lobbying to make the state of Georgia more union friendly, which we really need to go a long ways for on that. And of course, this is very tied. The state of Georgia, technically the wage, the minimum wage in the state of Georgia is $5.15 still. Of course, the federal rate wage is $7.25, but the state of Georgia never actually raised it. And we have one of the lowest when it comes to actual service workers too. And so it's no big surprise that we have some of the worst wages for a state that is so anti-union and has passed so many policies on the state level to be anti-union and against workers organizing. Those things kind of go hand in hand. And so I very much support Athens-Clarke County workers, whether that be our Athens transit drivers, our police officers, our firefighters, our public works, any of those employees, I would encourage them to unionize and to join unions, because it's going to help protect them. It's going to help them have better pay. I'm going to be a super hardcore pro-union, pro-worker mayor if I'm elected, but I won't always be in that seat. And if they are part of unions and are able to organize, that means that in the future, for generations to come, our workers will be getting better pay and being treated better. So in the public sector, I'm definitely going to be an advocate there. When it comes to the private sector, it is a lot more difficult. But one of the things we can be doing is that when we give out public funds to help businesses come here, say when we had Wayfair come here, they got a bunch of tax breaks, Caterpillar tax breaks. I think some of the things that we should be asking for and looking for is if these jobs are going to be union-friendly jobs. And that's one of the things that I would like to have. And if so, that should give them a little bit more preference if we're going to give them some of those public funds. But I definitely believe that if we're giving public tax dollars from Athens County to businesses to come here and help them get here and give them a break, the community needs to be getting something back in return for those dollars. And the number one thing that can be is well-paying jobs and well-treated employees. And I think one of the ways we could do that is by having them be union employees.
That's amazing. So with campaigns in like Zoran Mandani's in New York City, I've seen a lot of skeptics on the right question whether the limited power of a mayor allows the candidate to actually enforce a lot of their promises. How do you intend to responsibly use your mayoral power?
Yeah, and I've definitely followed that too, and sometimes it's true. Sometimes things aren't going to be able to get done. You run into complications. But that should not ever stop us from trying to put in place policies that are going to better our community and the people who live here. And so that's one of the things that I've very detailed gone through Mondami's platform and honestly very proud of things that he's has on his platform, zero fare public transit system, something that we actually got put in place already. And we have a lot of other, he's been focusing on having child care affordability, and that's definitely one of the big things that I want to focus on. And so a lot of times we're going to have to be creative to get these things done. And I think Mamdani's mayorship would definitely have to be very creative to get some of those things done too. But like I said, when it comes to the child care subsidies, it's a hard to find ways to get it. So I've really researched what other communities, other mayors, other counties and cities across the nation have done. And also just relied on my own policy working experience for many, many years to come up with creative ways of doing it. Say, like I said, taking regulation fees, something that you are legally allowed to do here in Georgia, put regulation fees in for different types of businesses and put them on vape dealers. And then we can put that fund into a program that again gives subsidies on childcare. Now, how the subsidies are put out, we have to get creative because there is something called the gratuities clause here in Georgia, which means that you cannot, a government or public officials can never give what could be considered a direct benefit or gift to people. Basically, it could be like, could you be possibly buying the support or buying votes, by giving certain things? So you have to have real specific arguments of why this is happening. One of the things we are allowed to do, though, is for low-income families we're able to give direct support to. So that would make it where we could give childcare subsidies to low-income individuals. Other ways we could possibly run out that program too would be that we would be giving support to the actual childcare providers, so that in return for them guaranteeing that they'll have a number of spots for children that they can offer at a low price, we could then give money to them so that they could hire a couple extra childcare workers to be able to watch those children. So there's a lot of creative ways that we can go about enacting these policies. What I can't stand, and I push back on when folks say things like that, is, what's the defense for not trying? When you have problems such as, families not being able to afford childcare, and therefore the parents can't go both and work jobs like they might want to, or go back to school because somebody has to stay at home and take care of the kid, and that kid's maybe not getting the same educational support that they could. It's like, what is the defense for not trying to do something about that? What is the defense for not trying to make housing more affordable when it's so expensive for folks? What is the defense for not trying to have our bus and transit systems be safe and accessible and affordable for the people who need it? I'm always going to side on, let's try to get something done that's going to help the folks. If we can't figure it out, then we'll start over and try again. But I think it's indefensible ever to say, well, there's nothing we can do, which I've heard so often. I mean, and I go back to, I campaigned in 2014, the first time I ran for mayor, on like having a zero fare public transit system. I clearly remember in debates being told, you can't do that. I campaigned on us having an income-based homestead exemption for low-income homeowners so that they could have lower their tax burden for people who are on a fixed income, especially retirees. I was told you can't do that. And even the eviction prevention program, having that rolled out so that we try to prevent evictions. Again, I was told we could not do that. All three of those policies we got done whenever I was a commissioner because we had the political will and we had somebody like myself and other commissioners who were willing to champion those things, not take no for an answer, and find a way to do it and help the people who needed help.
That's great. What final message would you say to voters that are on the fence about why they should vote for you?
Yeah, I think it goes a little bit into what I was just talking about. We have a lot of challenges here in Athens. Again, Athens isn't as affordable as it used to be. We're losing some of our creative, artistic soul because people can't afford to be here and pursuing those things as much anymore. And it's just we have a lot of challenges here. But I always look at it. If you have challenges, there's also room for opportunities. That's the way I always look about it. And I think to take on those challenges, we really need a mayor and a leader that can do two core things, and it's been proven. One is to have a vision and willingness to take on these things and actually do something about these problems. And the second is having somebody who actually has experience knowing how to do that. And when I first ran for mayor in 2014, I had that first part. I had the vision, I had the ideas. I will admit, I did not have the experience. And that was something that was levied against me a lot. Like, you've got great ideas, but you have no experience in doing these things. So I committed myself. I was like, that's true. So I need to get that experience. And so that's whenever I started. I got a seat on the Athens Clark County Vision Committee. I've served in the Federation of Neighborhoods, of course, as a commissioner, as a school board member, working at our Homeless Day Service Center, housing folks so I can understand homeless policy better so I can help serve that community. Serving on the Envision Athens Committee, Georgia Initiative for Community Housing, the Inclusionary Housing Task Force, all of these things so I could have a better understanding of what these challenges are and a better understanding of what policies and opportunities are there that we could use to solve those problems. And so I think that I am by far the best candidate that holds both of those things that we desperately need moving forward to really help Athens. And I hope that voters out there can understand that I have that experience and I have that vision and elect me on May 19th.
I think that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Definitely. Thanks for having me here, Archer. This has been really fun. Yeah.